Welcome to Fit, Fierce, and Fearless. I'm Zen, and this is the award-winning podcast from GenX Pole Arts. We're kicking off season 2 by looking back before we move forward. This episode is a mashup of the 5 most loved conversations from 2025. Voices, moments, and truths that resonated most with this community of women over 40. If you missed them the first time, this is your invitation in. And if you were there from the start, thank you and welcome back. Season 2 starts now. Every movement starts somewhere. This is where GenX Pole Arts began, with curiosity, courage, and the decision to stop shrinking.
Hi, welcome to episode number 1 of Fit, Fierce, and Fearless, presented by GenX Pole Arts. I am Zen Pole, also known as Nancy Adzentovich. I am the founder of GenX Pole Arts, and I am so excited. I've been working on this podcast concept now for about a year. I've got some great guests lined up for you guys coming down the road. But first of all, I wanted to kick it off with introducing myself and getting into a little bit of the why I think this is such an important message and what prompted me to start Gen X Pole Arts. So here we go. I started pole dancing right at the end of COVID when I was 49 years old, almost 50, just before I turned 50. Like everybody else during COVID, I was home during lockdown. I have 3 kids and 2 dogs, and it was just us. To say it was boring and kind of isolating is an understatement, as you all remember. My kids are boys. They stayed in their rooms on video games all day long. My dogs were kind of an annoyance, if nothing else at the time, but they did give me an opportunity to get out of the house and go for walks around the neighborhood, which I think helped preserve my sanity. But there came a point in time where I just felt like if I didn't try something out of the home that was different than just going to the gym and wearing a mask, which I had done as much as possible throughout COVID, that I was going to lose my mind. So there is a pole studio in my hometown, and it is kind of a staple. When you drive down this main road by the freeway, you see it. It has big red letters painted on the side of the building on the second story. And it's just there for everybody who drives by to wonder about. For years, I've seen it. So I think I found a Groupon and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally going to try this pole dancing thing because why not? Like the world is falling apart. I'm losing my mind. So what do I have to lose? So I went into the studio. I was wearing rollerblading knee pads. I was wearing like bicycle shorts as I was a triathlete at some point in time. And I think a sports bra with a tank top over it. And I went into the studio having no idea what to expect. I was wearing socks also. And it had such a cool vibe. It was like lights and loud music, and the instructor was super energetic, and all of the other women were kind of just open to trying whatever she said to do. So it was like a club. It reminded me of being in a club in my 20s. And I was like, okay, this is a lot different than being stuck in my bedroom scrolling on Twitter and Instagram all day long. So I really loved it. I felt super awkward. There were women wearing string bikinis and thongs. And I was like, wow, I wonder if she's actually a stripper because her body is amazing. And she looks super comfortable wearing no clothes and like hanging upside down and doing all of these moves with her hips. And I was like amazed and I guess inspired, really. I was so impressed and I felt dumpy and awkward and I just wasn't really feeling very good about myself at all. But these other women really opened my mind and made me think about, wow, like that's okay. Like people do that. Okay. I took a video of myself during that class because they really encourage it at that studio. So I watched the video after class and I shared it with my sister and I was laughing at myself. I was like, oh my gosh, look at me in my stripper class, because that's what I called it. I am definitely not cut out for this. I couldn't be more awkward and less graceful. But for some reason, I wanted to go back. I think the Groupon was like 3 classes. So I went back, and each time I went back, I wore a little bit less clothes. I got rid of the rollerblading knee pads because they were hard, right? They have like the hard cup on the knee. So when we were doing floor work, I was like not scratching the floor, but it was making that sound of like dragging on the floor, the hard plastic. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. And also didn't feel good because the plastic was like digging into my shin. So I got just some other kind of soft knee pads on Amazon, and I went back, and that was the beginning of like my vast collection of shoes and costumes and wardrobe. And someday I'll show you guys all the stuff I have around me right here. But I was hooked, needless to say. And it did take a while. I would say maybe it took like a month before I stopped making fun of myself entirely. And I started like looking at what I was doing on the videos and thinking, wow, I actually look pretty good. Like, also at that point in time in my life, I, before COVID, had gone through the most difficult period of my life that I may ever go through. I hope I don't ever go through anything worse than that, because I don't know if I would survive it. But I was married for 20 years and my husband was a musician. We met and got married when we were both living in Brooklyn in the late 1990s. We were broke. I was a struggling actress. He was a pretty successful working, I guess you could say, musician, working in the studio and doing some tours with independent artists and gigs here and there. I got involved in marketing as a temp job. And then the .com era blossomed, whatever, the very first .com era, which was called the bubble and burst for those of you who are younger. And I worked at a .com, and it wasn't a career I ever meant to have. I kind of fell into it because I worked at those temp jobs as I was doing like independent films. I was in a Spike Lee film. I was in a Tim Robbins film. I was like having a career in New York as an actress, but I wasn't supporting myself with that. What I found I was good at in doing temp work was the marketing. So fast forward a few more years, I had a third child. And then my company relocated us to Los Angeles, where I am today. And my role became even broader, and I was traveling more. I was not around much. I was exhausted. I was gaining weight. I was feeling very stuck because I was the real breadwinner of our family who was maintaining the lifestyle we had become accustomed to. During that time, my husband was having very strange health symptoms, to the point where in 16 or 15, while he was touring in his most successful career move ever to date, we found out that he had a very, very rare liver disease called nodular regenerative hyperplasia with portal hypertension. Fast forward a year and a half, insane symptoms, procedures, fighting with the medical insurance industry, looking for doctors, switching doctors, using my network of people to find the best care path for him and to put a team together that could do something. He was a patient at the National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C., and we would fly there. We were patients at UCLA, Cedar Sinai, and eventually had to go to Stanford, where we found the only doctor who was willing to try a liver transplant on him for this condition, which is not something that typically happens, or at that time, it wasn't typical in the US. It was only something they did in Europe. I moved my entire family. I took my kids out of school. They were in middle school and elementary school. And we moved to the Bay Area so that my husband could be on the list for a liver transplant. I had my parents at my house in Southern California taking care of things. Thankfully, we had GoFundMe set up by people who cared about us to help us pay for the mortgage and rent in a second city. I was on family medical leave. It was like, I don't even know what to describe it. It was just an insane period of time that I didn't think I could overcome in any way, shape, or form. Fortunately, I got my shit together enough to join Core Power Yoga in the Bay Area. I have done my 200-hour yoga teacher training years ago. So yoga was always part of my life. But during the time when I was working so much and traveling so much and raising my kids and dealing with my husband's diagnosis and then all of his treatments and trying to manage his medical care, my care was the very bottom of the priority list. My care turned into drinking a bottle of wine every night and getting 4 hours of sleep and washing my face and brushing my teeth. That was basically what I did for myself during those years. It was not pretty, but I needed to, in my mind, I needed to provide some semblance of normalcy for my kids, support my husband emotionally, spiritually, and actually logistically during his care. I started yoga. The doctor or the nurse at Stanford said, you need to take at least an hour for yourself every day. He will be okay if you leave him for an hour. Go to the yoga class. It's the best thing you could do for everybody. And because she told me that, I thank her to this day. I did that. And I got on my yoga practice and I went to that studio and I cried on my mat and my body opened up and I started to feel stronger and more capable and more connected to myself. And the emotional side of what was going on, which I had definitely pushed down because for me to feel the overwhelming emotions that were part of the situation would have caused me to break down and not be person I needed to be for my family at that time. But in the yoga studio, I had access to some of that. It was life saving and life changing. I am so grateful to my yoga practice. Anyway, he had the transplant in March. It was a transplanted organ that 2 other surgeons had declined for their patients because when they took the organ from the donor, it was damaged. We knew this, and our surgeon, who is one of the top in the world, said, this is your only chance to live. At this point, my husband, who was 48 years old, was about 89 pounds, and his hair had turned white. And this is a man who was a triathlete and a traveling musician and had always been healthy. He turned into a very, very old man, very, very frail within 10 months. So we took it. The transplant was successful. His recovery was ahead of the curve because he had been so healthy prior. He was riding the exercise bike. He was doing some stretching. He was doing little bits of yoga that I was helping him with. But there were complications with the organ and the bile duct. And even though we all moved back home in May and we had the opportunity to make some really good memories together, my children celebrated his birthday. We celebrated his parents' 50th wedding anniversary. We celebrated our youngest child's 10th birthday. And then less than a month later, he was waiting for a second liver transplant and he passed away. And I was left with 3 kids, a mortgage, no job, because I forgot to mention when I came back from family medical leave, a month later, my company laid me off. That's a whole different story I can't even get into. So no job, 3 kids, a mortgage. My husband had no life insurance. He didn't have a retirement account because he was a self-employed musician. Honestly, you guys, I did not know what the fuck I was going to do. I was just blindsided. Things had been going really well with the recovery. We thought we were on a path to having a future with our family, not maybe the one we had always imagined, but we didn't think that this would be the outcome. but it was. Through the help of my community here, we had food for a year. People fed us. My professional network, after about 6 months, somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, we have a job for you. You could do it in your sleep. It's everything you've done before. It's a pay cut, but it's down the street from you. You don't have to travel. And I think you could start really soon." And I took it. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't be more happy or grateful. And to this day, if it weren't for the support of my local community, my work community, and my family, I wouldn't be sitting here. And I don't know where my children would be today. Then that was 2018. I started the new job in 2019. I spent that next year trying to just figure out, how do I pay bills? I didn't even know what bills we had. A year later, COVID. And my youngest son was diagnosed during COVID with Crohn's disease. He was very, very sick, and we spent a lot of time in the hospital with his Crohn's disease during COVID. In fact, he was in a medically induced coma for a week on life support. So, pole dancing, to circle it back, this is a really long story to let you know, I was about 40 pounds overweight. I was emotionally, physically, mentally drained in every capacity, or maybe two. When I went to that pole studio and walked into that club environment and saw these women wearing these little cute bikinis, shaking their booties, feeling joyful, owning their sensuality, having fun in that moment, it was the best fucking medicine I could have asked for. And I didn't even know I needed it. And the experience that I've had ever since that first day has validated it over and over again. I meet more women at the studio who come for the first time who are finding themselves in similar dire circumstances, leaving bad marriages, getting out of abusive relationships, fighting in divorce court for custody of their children, laid off from jobs that they've had for 20 years, struggling to figure out who they are after some kind of loss or setback. And being in the studio, having the opportunity to get out of your mind and to get away from all that shit that is happening around you and be present in that very moment is a blessing, and it is healing. And it doesn't matter if you are good at it. It doesn't matter what your body condition is. It doesn't matter if you think you can do it or if you think that you can't do it. If you walk in there, you are going to feel different when you walk out. And if you say hello to even one woman in that studio, I promise you, you will have made a new friend who will have some kind of understanding to whatever it is you're going through right now. And that is why I started GenX Polarx.
Reinvention doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it unfolds through self discovery, honesty, and the willingness to listen inward. Today, I am so excited because I have my first guest, and it's somebody who's really important to me, my friend Deeana Garcia. And actually, now that I think about it, Dee helped me come up with the name of the podcast, Fit, Fierce, and Fearless. Dee and I have known each other for a few years. We are pole sisters, part of the same studio, and we actually started an events production company last year called Ladies of Leisure, and we produce pole events and parties for our community. And we have some really cool things in the works for this year. So, you want to introduce yourself a little? Tell something about yourself.
Sure. So I am a single mom of a 6-year-old. I actually just did a drop off to his dad's. So now it's my time to invest in myself and do all the safe self care and nurture my body. Hence the pole class we're going to go to afterwards. But aside from that, I have a full time job. I do the event producing with Nancy. I like pickleball. I do crafts. But yeah, just pole has been a big part of my life for at least the last 4 years. It's really helped kind of elevate every part of my life. Surprisingly, I had no idea that it had the power to do that or was capable of doing that. But as I continue to put more time into pole, challenge myself, face my fears with these different tricks, express myself with various different kind of choreo, everything just starts to trickle down into my real life. And I just see myself really evolving and changing in this beautiful way that I never imagined to, especially in my 40s. And so it's been really cool to discover who has come out on the other side and continues to come out on the other side. And I love sharing it with others too. And I think a big part of it is, having my son kind of watch me grow and change throughout the course of things and events that have happened that got me here. So that's a big part of it. But yeah, thanks, Nancy, for having me.
How old were you when you first started pole?
I actually started right when I hit 40, actually. Actually, I hit 40 and then I started 3 months later. It kind of was at the same time where me and my husband had separated, me and my ex-husband had separated. So that's kind of the chain of events that helped me find pole. When we separated, I was really trying to find myself again and reconnect with my body and reconnect with who I was. I think when I was married and and having a toddler, I just kind of lost who I was before all of that.
Mhm.
And pole kind of came about after watching a documentary. Actually, I watched that documentary called S Factor on
Yep.
Netflix, and
Mhm.
then just hearing the stories of these women, kind of all walks of life, just trying to reconnect with their bodies and also like get over some pretty traumatic traumas and whatnot. I After watching that, I kind of was like, I think this is what I need. I think I want to try this. I think this is just something that I just wanted to try. Really, I just wanted to try and see where it went. And obviously, it's now a part of my regular life and regular habits and hobbies and whatnot, and I love it. So yeah, that's kind of a more than enough of your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. When you started pole, when you went to your first class, did you know anybody else at the time who was doing pole dancing, or was it just you saw the documentary and then you just went and found a place and stepped into the studio?
Yeah, no, I did not know anybody that pole danced whatsoever. I actually was really embarrassed about going into a class that I actually scheduled a
Mm,
one-on-one
okay.
individual session because I just didn't feel comfortable. But I recall now thinking about it, I was always like, back in college in our 20s, like I remember going to strip joints and different clubs and with friends. And I was always enamored by these women, just watching
Mm,
them express themselves freely and being comfortable with their bodies and just I always was really fascinated at watching them on the stage and just being them and regardless what shape, size, whatever age. It was just like really cool to see women do that. But seeing myself do it at first was really hard. It did take me a while to kind of look in the mirror and see this new person that was emerging. It was really like just shocking to see that I had that in me and that I was capable of expressing myself in that way and moving my body in that way and feeling and looking really comfortable doing it. It was really an interesting process. And I think sometimes I still do get caught off guard, like, whoa, that's me. Like, that's crazy. Who knew that she was under there?
and sometimes, Dee, I'll see your video like last week, that one where you're like, wow, my boobs look so good when I'm upside down. I was like, I was thinking the same thing. Look at Dee's boobs, they look amazing. But it's really cool to see, like, sometimes, I mean, I surprise myself all the time, and then my friends surprise me as well, right? And it feels so validating and exciting when you just can witness that freedom. I think it's like, we become more and more free in the way we move our bodies, how we are existing in our bodies, how comfortable we are trying really hard and scary things wearing no clothes.
Hmm.
And I really can appreciate everything you just said about that. Like sometimes it's just like it makes you like, take a moment and be like, that's me, or
Mhm.
that's D, wow. And then here we
Yeah,
are in our mom clothes and taking kids to school and cleaning up, messes and dealing with work fires. And then it all changes when we
right,
step
right.
into the studio.
Yeah, I actually learned of this term. I think me and you were talking about it, Nancy, of various different ways of saying this. But one thing that came to mind was this notion of are these personas that we carry. And
Mm,
I feel like when I discovered pole, a new persona came about. A woman that could be whoever the fuck she wants to be
yeah.
in, when she's dancing, wear whatever she wants, be whatever character she wants to today. And be amongst women and men that are feel make us feel safe and support our expression and our vulnerabilities, and we could just be whoever we want, and it's not even, it's like it's just like an opportunity to kind of play with our personas and our who we are and who we strive to be and want to be and become. And it's like a playful place for us to do that. And at the same time, all the various layers of pole, just the challenges, the tricks, the choreo, the songs, the music, like the instructors, the people you dance with. It's just like all of those different layers provide an opportunity to continue to like learn about yourself, learn about others, explore yourself. I don't think I really was expecting all of that, but it kind of all happens, and
Mm,
it's something to take advantage of. And I'm personally somebody that loves to do new things. It's kind of a dopamine addiction that I have to try novel
mhm.
experiences. And so, like pole is continues to be that. It's still fairly new to me, and it still continues to like provide me new outlets to try something different or try something new or wear something new or be somebody else, or even like our ladies of leisure event producing company. Like it's just become our outlet to like do whatever we want and be whoever we want to be, which I love.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. So I love
Hmm.
the idea of the persona because
Hmm.
it's true, of course. I agree with you 100%, but it also makes me think about the fact that we have to step in these personas where we give ourselves permission to do whatever we want.
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm 55 years old. Why don't I give myself that permission in all the areas of my life? Like in all of my guises and personas. Like I feel like and maybe now since this whole persona, right, Zen is come into existence and has reached this stage of maturity. It's been years now since she's been part of who I am. And I do think that's trickled over into other areas of my life. I've changed my career. I stepped away from a job that didn't work for me. I stepped away from a relationship that didn't work for me. I'm parenting differently now. And I think that all comes from taking a little bit of that. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want because it's my life. And I actually don't need permission to do that. Like that came to me in the pole studio. And I think I always thought I lived my life like that. Like I was very much living by the Gen X ethos, right? Like non-conformity. You can't make me do what I don't want to do. Meanwhile, I was living a life that I didn't want. I was like, how did my life get to be what it is today? Because this isn't the life I ever expected or really wanted to have. But it wasn't until I really, what's the word, surrendered to that pole persona and really leaned into our community as well, because I think that's part of what gives us the space to step into that persona, because we all are supporting each other in doing that and unleashing our most authentic selves and following our passions and being who we are. Finally came into my real life, right? And now my life looks completely different than the day I stepped into the pole studio for the first time. Completely
Yeah,
different.
yeah. Something you were saying kind of brought something up for me. Just like when I started pole and how I showed up and presented myself in the workplace, I felt
Mm,
like there was a significant impact there that I was kind of surprised to see. I was just so much more confident in
Yeah.
the workplace. I was able to kind of connect with my feminine energy to kind of influence people, to pretty much, do what I need them to do,
Yeah.
to get certain projects completed and whatnot. There was just this different energy that I was really practicing. And I work in tech, so it's a pretty male dominated industry. And so I work with a lot of men, and being able to utilize that feminine energy that I really started to open up to after pole has been really empowering. I feel like I'm definitely, very much supported in the workplace because I have this like way of inspiring or influencing people to do what I need them to do without this like this like authority.
Mm.
And so it's definitely impacted my work environment a lot. And just like, also being super vulnerable, like when I don't know certain answers to questions at work, I can actually admit it, like I'm not perfect, like those sorts of things are just like really being okay with who I am, how I present myself today, and like not worrying about all this judgment, at least at the best. I'm not perfect, but I still worry about that stuff. But at least there's a lot more outlets for me to practice vulnerability and just accept who I am and as I am, and continue to live that way. So yeah, it's been good.
Joy has no expiration date. This conversation reminded us that midlife can be the moment we finally choose ourselves. Joined today by the amazing Firebird, who is a pole sister of mine. We started polling, I think, around the same time. She is an instructor. She's a brilliant soul and a sultry, slinky performer. And I really think you're going to enjoy getting to know her today. I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you again, and I am so glad to be here. I want to start by saying that I am 50 years old now, and I'm very proud of that. I can finally say flying over 50. I started pole dancing when I was 46 and a half, and so I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary, April 10th. I walked into that studio, the secret pole dance studio, my home away from home. It has since become my home away from home. And I walked in and I was so scared. I was like a little deer. And I met my pole mom by chance. I was assigned a private with the gorgeous Tamia, and she really was so warm and welcoming. I was too scared to take a class. So I signed up for a private, and she just opened the door for me to discover this beautiful art form. And I'm so thankful because, to be honest, I had always wanted to be an exotic dancer. I had always felt very sultry in my soul, but that's not something that I would outwardly express. And so I'd always wanted to do it. And, the pandemic hit, and I thought, now or never. I did wait to get vaccinated in March of 2021, and then I walked into the studio, and I really just never looked back. I remember when I started, I asked the owner, Diamond, I said, "Can I bring my toothbrush? Can I bring my pillow? Can I move in?" And I was serious, and she thought I was crazy, and I was like, "No, no, no, take all my money. Like, yeah, let me bring my wardrobe. Let me move in." And yeah,
Right.
everyone was just so nice, and the community, the instructors, and I truly just have never looked back. I love it so much. It is the joy of my life.
I know that is something that I've heard you say for a long time, that it
Yeah.
is the joy of your life. And I
Yes,
feel like that just comes from such a real place within you.
it
I love
does.
it.
It just checks all the boxes. Like I was talking about at the beginning, we have the amazing wardrobe, we have the
Mhm,
music, we have the
mhm,
outfits, we
mhm.
have the shoes, we have the community. It's just so fun.
Yeah,
And after a couple of private, she said, I'm happy for you to continue seeing me, but you got to get your ass to class. Can I say
I
that?
love it.
Ass. You got to get your ass to class. So I went to class, and I remember being in Jillian Gemini's class, and I I was so nervous. She said to freestyle, and I just held on to my pole, which I think is really common. It's a really common
Mhm.
reaction. I didn't have a lot of dance vocabulary at the time, and I was just, I was just sort of staring in awe at the other dancers, like, how
Like,
are
what's
they doing
a
this?
freestyle, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
And now it's become what I love. And I think you love that too. I
Yes.
just want to freestyle. I just really want someone to turn the music on. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's slow music or fast music, what kind of
Mhm.
music. It could be classical music. It could
Mhm.
it could be ratchet, it could be country.
Yeah.
And I just want to dance slowly. I will dance freestyle as slow as possible to any music.
And that's become your signature style. Like, everybody knows you for that. People flock to your classes to learn how to do that. It's true, but
Yeah.
there's a couple interesting things that just came up for me while I was listening to you. One, you mentioned a few of the teachers who we started with, Tamia, Gemini, and I think of also Ariel and Mocha, and I think about how young these women are or were at the time. And for in my experience, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, they were so like, I never felt like an age gap. I never was made to feel like I was this 49-year-old woman and here's like a 22 or 20-year-old, right? Teaching me. They carried themselves with such confidence and authority, and also were very openly supportive and welcoming, that I just felt I had complete trust in everything that they told me to do. I just did it. Like, I never felt like they babied me or coddled me because I was older than them or older than most pole dancers. Like, it just seemed natural or right. I don't know. And I think now you're an instructor. I am an instructor. You know, I don't know if there are more older types of instructors today than there were then, or if it's just where we happen to be at the moment. But yeah, I don't know, like, what was your experience working with these beautifully talented young women? I mean, their confidence and strength really inspired me.
Absolutely. You're spot on. They were so welcoming and so knowledgeable. Many of them had grown up dancing from a very, very early age in,
Mhm.
traditional studios, and had so much body awareness and just a lot of personable skills, to welcome you to create a warm, safe environment. It's a very
Mhm.
vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, several of us maybe took a moment to walk into a studio in the first place and started
Mhm.
with privates rather than in class, because I know for myself, I thought, oh gosh, I'm probably so behind given that I'm decades older. But no, not at all. I think that they really encouraged us and embraced us and just, thought that we belonged there just as much as anyone else. And that's what I've come to love. I actually think that there are a lot of instructors of all ages, a lot of
Mhm.
students of all ages, a lot of styles, right? And
Mhm.
so there's something for everyone. But I'm really, really appreciative of those people I came into contact with at the get go, because I wouldn't have stayed, I don't think, even though I yearned for this outlet in my life and this sensual expression, I don't think I would have stayed if it hadn't been for those early instructors and the students I met along the way. I mean, we became such a tribe.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah, exactly. We're still not just going to classes together, but going to events together, hanging out outside the studio, sharing
Mhm.
one another's homes, going on retreats together. It's a lifestyle. I do want to shout out extra special to my pole mom, Tamia, who also goes by Gemini now. There's two Geminis we've been
Oh,
talking
right,
about,
right. Yeah.
and she is half my age. So
Right. Crazy.
yeah, and yeah, I know that I will never it sounds harsh to say this, but I say it with a lot of love and compassion for myself. I will never be a trickster at the level in which, of course they can perform. Maybe if I challenge myself a little bit more than I do. But I love to dance, and so I haven't trained tricks as much because I like the low flow and the floor work dance style.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, I'm so inspired by them. And I do think that I try things that I wouldn't, or I've tried things that I wouldn't have tried because of them.
Yeah, I love that. It's beautiful to have a mentor who is so junior to you, At any age you can inspire somebody. You could be, a 16, 17-year-old pole dancer inspiring somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I felt so held by them.
Mhm.
And I also want to say that they said a lot, they taught a lot about connection
Mhm.
to others and to audience in
Mm.
those early months and the first year or two of me dancing. And for me, pole dance is actually a very personal expression. I do love to perform. We could totally talk about that. I love to perform. I love to slink and slither around for others, but I feel as if it's a very personal experience, and they really helped me get out of my shell and
Mm.
think about that connection to either other dancers, within the studio, outside the studio, and with audience. And that's been invaluable. And it's something that I really try to pass along to those I teach. It's the outward expression of the movement holistically with eyes, with your fingers, with your heart, body,
Yeah.
legs.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's part of what contributes to the strength of the community that we have as dancers, because we do show up in the studio and in our performances in that way where we are striving for connection, and we're putting ourselves out there through all of our senses and one another, amongst each other.
Yeah,
And so it just creates that bond.
it
Like,
elevates.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But, I don't think that necessarily all instructors focus on that. And that's fine. There's so many things to focus on. But I'm
Mhm.
particularly thankful that those early experiences I had, that was a focus because it's really transformed, I think, how I move
Mhm.
and and I receive a lot from others when I'm in the studio and, whether they're other students or, like I said, an audience for a performance, I feel like I receive much more than I give as a dancer. So I so appreciate it. Yeah.
It's beautiful. When you talk about performing in freestyle, you do so beautifully. Somebody commented the other day that you move like you don't have bones. And I thought that was so accurate. So what goes through your mind, if anything,
Mm,
when you're
mm.
freestyling?
First of all, I want to thank whoever shared that comment. I don't actually feel like I'm all that flexible, but I do feel like I have some command, some presence when I move, and I am working on my flexibility and mobility finally. And I remember talking to a friend last week, and she did tell me that I moved like I'm a human lava lamp.
I
So I
love
take that as a huge compliment. I'm very slow, very slow. I probably talk fast, but I do everything else very slowly. My process is really to enjoy the music and enjoy the moment. It's not too profound. It's really being present and just allowing myself to get carried away. I really like a flow. And I,
Mhm.
I really believe that doing very little can speak volumes. Something that was discussed at the workshop this weekend by Josie Moon, was that it actually doesn't take all that much movement to entice and captivate and enthrall.
Mm.
Sometimes less is more, just the way that maybe I stand up or I approach the pole or walk or toss my hair, that kind of thing. Those elements are really important to me. They may seem minor to some dancers, it might not be that captivating to them, but to me personally, I really relish in that. And I want to encourage any student, any any dancer, any mover who feels called to that kind of subtlety to explore it because it's really fulfilling to me. It really shows that I'm in my joy.
Growth does not always come from pushing harder. Sometimes evolution asks us to slow down, trust our bodies, and honor who we are becoming. Firebird's initial episode has been the most streamed episode of the year. And by a lot, you guys, and pretty much you pulled out in front right in the beginning. Like as soon as you dropped, it was like boom. So you have a lot of fans out there, Firebird. I don't know what to tell you. So
It's
I
me and
thought
my mom.
no. So I thought it would be nice to bring you back and maybe just thank you publicly for your contribution to the success of the podcast this year. Obviously, people appreciate you and your story and the way you've inspired them. You always have inspired me since I've met you. And maybe just, we could close out the year with a little recap of what's happened for you since you were on in February, March, and maybe looking ahead at what's coming up. So
Yeah, that sounds
thank you
great.
for being here. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. As I said when I was a previous guest, I really appreciate that you've created this, and congratulations on your.
Okay, back to you because this isn't supposed to be about me.
Oh, I'm excited to be part of what you created. And two things stand out to me: your consistency, which is very similar to what we're trying to accomplish with our dancing, right? We're really
Yeah,
committed. We're in the studio, and you are each week you're showing up for the podcast, which is really exciting. And also, I want to congratulate you on some of the guests that you've had, especially recently, Fran and Makeda. And, they'll be surpassing me in views shortly because they're so well known and so incredible, such phenomenal inspiration. So actually, I wouldn't go so far as to call it preparing for this, but just in thinking about meeting with you again, I did go back and listen to some excerpts from my first time on the show. And interestingly, I said to you at that point, I'm not a trickster.
right.
And this was back in February. I would still say I'm not a trickster, but at the beginning, you did ask me, in what ways have you grown or focused this year? And I actually focused a lot on my aerial passes, if you will. And I like to say that I enjoy making shapes, and I still don't consider myself a trickster, but I can make some advanced shapes. And I've really been enjoying that. And it was something I wasn't expecting. And yeah, I've always considered myself more of a dancer, but in that first episode, I did mention to you that I'm not a trickster, and I don't think I'll ever get there. And then I,
Got
according
there.
to myself, blew it out of the water this year.
Yes, you have. It's true. The beginning of the year, you were feeling it doesn't ever leave you, like the sensual movement and the floor movement and the base work kind of stuff. And then at some point, you went from the base and you just kind of elevated literally up the pole to make all of these absolutely gorgeous shapes. And I think what's so interesting about watching you is you bring the same fluidity and the same softness, the same sensuality to your moves if you're on the floor or if you're 6 feet up the pole. And
Mhm.
it feels the same. It's like seamless to me to watch you go from the floor up the pole. Even the way in which you climb, it's almost like you don't even see you climb and all of a sudden you're up there and it's like, wait, how did she get there? Like she was just slinking around here and then all of a sudden it's like you slither up the pole. I don't know how to describe it. It's magic. But it's beautiful.
That is the
And
goal.
if anything, it is your unique signature. Like I know that you've studied with a lot of amazing instructors and done lots of different workshops all over the place. Um, but you don't imitate anybody. Like it synthesizes within you and it comes out as Firebird. Like I don't see anybody moving like you either. I like to watch the student videos from the classes that you teach because I see the influence of your
Mm.
movement in what comes out during class. But as hard as they may try to imitate what you're doing, it isn't the same. But I see
Mm.
the essence of what you're teaching coming through in the students. And that's also really beautiful because that's how you know it's a real unique style that others are able to pick it up and bring it into what they're doing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Mhm.
I can see one of your students dancing a choreo without mentioning you at all. And I'm like, I got that from her.
Thank you. Yes, I saw some local students as well as some pretty famous instructors doing some climbs that intrigued me. And so I asked my friend Kendall one day in open poll, will she show me her beautiful climb? And I had seen some elements of that from Tia Jax, who's just
Mhm,
absolutely phenomenal.
mhm.
Another Scorpio, Tia is. And yeah, and I think I really wanted to be able to dance my climbs. And once I felt more elegant in dancing my climbs, and once I got my aerial invert back, which I had not been able to aerial invert for about 2 years because of my shoulder injury,
Mhm.
that just changed the game for me this year. And I found myself really enjoying exploring after climbing, inverting, and being upside down and thinking, no, where can I move what and still feel in the flow,
Yeah,
still feel like I am dancing.
yeah.
And that's why I say I'm not a trickster. I'm never aiming to hit a specific shape that's known
Mm,
in the industry, and that's just because I'm really just not great at that. Like if you ask me to do a gorgeous butterfly, it's not going to look right. So I
yeah,
sort of gave myself permission this year to say, like, look, throw that all out the window. What can I do that feels right in my body and that looks yummy, feels yummy? And I had a lot of unexpected success with that. And I think I convey that in the studio, though. Like when I'm dancing, I do think that the peace that I feel in my
mhm.
life, and sort of that, like, I call it, like, I hope, like a quiet elegance.
Yeah,
I think that that shows through in the dancing.
yes. There's a sophistication about you as well that I think
Thank
comes
you.
through. Definitely.
Thank you. I'm sort of just a silly nerd behind the scenes, but I think when I dance, I do. I do think when I dance, we talked about this before, that like I have some command and some elegance, and I think it's fun to play with. Like I actually I really honor the fact that like I am sort of a goofy nerdy person, in my day-to-day life, and I love
Mhm.
that. And then I also love that like it feels very authentic and natural for me to be a sort of slinky, sexy, sensual dancer. And I love that we have all sides. So many of us have so many different sides to us. And me meeting the dance studio and pole dance just really tapped in, and we talked about this before, like just really tapped into other parts of me that needed an outlet, and I feel so much more whole
Yes,
now. Like everything has come together, and that
yes,
just is so grounding. It's so regulating, and that's why I encourage anyone who's interested in pole to give it a try, because it does bring out other aspects of you that can just be really fun to learn about,
yeah, yes,
right?
yeah. That's why I'm doing this. I believe it
Hmm.
100%. Like it's life
Yeah,
changing. It's life affirming.
yeah,
It is liberating and it allows you to get reacquainted with parts of yourself who you may not have seen since your childhood.
yeah,
We
yeah,
bury some pieces of ourselves as we go through life, especially as women. We bury those parts because we have to be the responsible ones. We have to have the children and the jobs and the partners and take care of our parents. Like we have all these responsibilities that we forget the playfulness and the
hmm,
sensualness. We forget about our physical selves, because we're busy taking care. We're the caretakers for everything and everybody else.
yeah.
So,
So I do think next year is going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
me too. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to see with you where we go.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
we'll have to see. I'm excited too. I don't know. I don't know. It's always something new.
Some voices change us forever. This is a conversation about bravery, intentional living, and choosing how we show up, even in the face of death. And I'm really excited today because I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm switching things up. I have with me as a guest a very dear friend who I've known for more than a decade at this point, maybe even close to 15 years, 12 years, something like that. Anyway, Shana Pereira, who is somebody who I met when I first moved to Los Angeles. Shana was there with me when my husband got sick, as you guys know from previous episodes. She went through that with me. She's been still in my life as I've changed jobs and been laid off from jobs, and has started her own company, and we've worked on things together on the side, et cetera, et cetera. And today we're here to talk about her journey, which does not include pole dancing yet, but I'm determined to get her into a class and into the studio because Shana needs help finding a kidney. So I know I'm not putting her on the spot and putting her here to ask anybody for that, because it's a very personal, vulnerable, and can be awkward position to be in. But I'm saying it for her. And Shana, I am very happy that you're here. I know it takes a lot of courage to come tell your story, and I appreciate that. I see that. I'm holding space for you here. You can share as much about your journey or as little about your journey as feels comfortable to you today. But welcome. My goal is to get you to a point where you're going to come into the pole studio with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I can't wait. I really cannot wait to have this kidney transplant and be able to do exactly that. So thank you. I was really blessed to work with you because coming from my background, even my education level, the formal education I have, et cetera, Omnicom was never a place that I was going to just get hired by applying online. You know,
Right.
like I have been very lucky to have people like you that have believed in me along the way and that have given me opportunities that sometimes they've been well beyond my expertise, but a match for my level of faith, frankly. Of,
Mm, I
and I've
love
always
that.
felt that. I've always felt like I don't know how to do much, but I know I'm going to find out. And I know I'm going to find the person that knows how to do it. And I'm going to ask
Mhm.
them whatever I need to ask them to be able to figure out
Right.
how to do this thing. So I even remember our interview where it was like, do you know how to do this? I'm like, no. What about this? I don't know how to
No,
do
but
that.
I could probably figure it out.
But what
But
I
the
did
thing,
know was people, right? And relationships and like how to bring people together. It was always my specialty.
still to this day. And so your attitude of curiosity and resourcefulness and tenacity is exactly what was required at that time to be successful. Like, people who thought they were just going to come into this job and execute something they learned in business school were not going to be successful, because nobody was teaching this in class anywhere, because it didn't exist. We created the class at LMU, right? When we worked together.
Yeah.
Adaptive media and analytics, like it didn't exist. So I needed people to come work for me who had that innate curiosity about how things work, what motivates somebody to search a certain way, what kind of a result are they going to expect to see when they search for a certain type of keyword, right? And so that's why your answers were perfect and your background was perfect. And to this day, you're very curious and interested in humans and humanism and what drives people and what motivates people, and yeah, trying to figure things out.
No,
So
exactly.
it was
And
perfect.
thank you. I appreciate that. Um, it brings me straight to, as much as I think I know about that, asking for a kidney, I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
Like, I actually really don't know how to do it. You know? There's some things where you're like, I don't know, and I'll figure it out. This one is one where I am stumped. So um, I don't know why someone would give someone else a kidney, except that I would, right? Like, it's kind of like that innate calling of like, of course I would. Um, and I know from personal experience what that's like, where
yep,
this is one that requires profound partnership. You know,
absolutely.
And those that want to give me a kidney will be called forth to do that, irrespective of like me, Shana. I think it's an innate desire that's there, and a calling almost.
Yeah.
I think, again, I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah, it's much easier for me to say those words because I'm not asking for something for myself, right? So I only can imagine how difficult it is for you or anybody who's in the situation where you need this to continue to live your life.
Well, I've had 2 stints of this, and this time around, I've been dealing with kidney failure since December 2015. And in total, I've been on dialysis for a total of 7.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And dialysis really, the lifespan of someone on dialysis is generally only around 5 years. And so the doctors are quite amazed. And that's why we need a kidney sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've had a kidney transplant.
I had a kidney and a heart transplant Christmas
Mhm.
2020.
Right.
And that was a miracle. And
Absolute miracle.
it was on Christmas days. My life has actually been saved twice on Christmas Day. And the donor she was a 29-year-old.
Yeah, it
Because
must
I
have
couldn't
been.
sleep that night. I was like, oh my God. Like, I had so much energy, and like, I mean, there was so much light shining in through everything. The nurses were excited. We'd been praying that night. It was COVID. And
Right.
all of the nurses couldn't be anywhere near me. At that point, my heart was at 8%, I think. And I remember sitting there and saying to God, all right, well, this is your moment. If you want believers, we all need a miracle. We're in COVID. Like, we're all stuck in the
Right.
house. We're all in the house bored, and we're bored in the house, right? Like, it was like no one can see anybody. This
Right.
year sucked completely for everybody in the world.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we need something. And I wasn't particularly religious, but I had been in heart failure at that point for 4 months. And I thought, I better get my shit together just in case it's all real, like,
Yeah. Right.
just in
Yep.
case. And that was the beginning of this very, very spiritual journey, as you can imagine, because when you're in a position where there's no other human being on earth that can help you, that's when I experienced real life. That was like,
Yeah.
I remember sitting there on Christmas Eve and being like, all right, well, if I die, I die. Like, what are you supposed to do? The doctors are like, we've done everything. Now we wait.
Right.
And so I remember speaking to God, and I said, look, if you save me, I will give up all of my human desires, and I'll follow my intuition, which I think is you. I'm now discovering this is you. This is how you
Mhm.
talk to me. And I've always been very sensitive to energy, even down to like, I'll have Sage in the office, and if we have a bad meeting, I'm like saging the person, like,
Yeah.
energy out of here. But I've always been really sensitive to it. You can't pay me to be somewhere I don't want to be. It doesn't even
Yeah.
make sense that I'm still a no.
Yeah.
Um, and so I realized that was how I was getting, messages from who I call God, but people say Allah, people say source, Mother
Mhm.
Gaia, universe, like all the different terms, right? But that energetic force that we know is kind of there, um, no matter whether we're religious or not, it's serendipity, it's, all that.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember saying like, look, I'll give up whatever things I think I need, that I'm attached to, like, I'll give it up and I'll follow my intuition. Like, you put an idea in my head and I'll get it done. No
Right.
matter how scared I am, no matter how worried I am, no matter how insecure I feel, I'm going to take steps forward.
Mhm.
Um, Little did I know at the time, but that's how the years played out after
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Um, one of my friends I was talking to, Elise, who you might know from back in our agency days, she was my work wife.
Everyone's got one.
Right? She, she said, look, maybe dying is the easy part.
Mm.
And at the time, I was like, no way, that was really hard. Now I'm like, oh my God, that was actually easy because it had nothing to do with me, right? Like I was there, but everything was going to happen how it was going to happen. I didn't have any control over it at all.
Right. Right.
But since then, having tasted my body functioning fully and being super strong and being able to go to Soul Cycle and to like, to be able to exercise at my maximum capacity like I
Yep.
used to, and having had 6 months of that and then not,
Yeah.
it feels even worse this second time around because I'm like, I tasted it. It was like right there. And then now like we need another kidney. And it's like, and I say we because I'm always cognizant that there's two of us in my body that I'm accountable for.
It's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you and I have gone through quite an interesting, I don't know, 12 or 18 months this past 12 or
Yeah,
18 months where we both lost our jobs and trying to work on like a new endeavor that you've envisioned. And I started GenX Pole Arts, and you've been supportive of me, and I'm trying to be supportive of you throughout. And at the same time, like trying to figure out, how do we pay our bills? How do we like do a side hustle in the meantime? And having faith that it's all going to work out, and constantly reminding each other that, like you're saying, this is the hard part. Like believing that things are going to work out and getting through just the day-to-day stuff that sometimes seems impossible.
it does. And there's been a few people that have been so generous in wanting to make this video for me to find me a kidney. And the video was all a sob story. And I'm like, I'm just not a sob story.
You are not a sob story
I
at all.
know.
I
It's
think
not
this is,
even my vibe.
and I don't even see this as, I just see this as introducing you to a different community and a different group of people who deserve to be inspired by you, because you are an inspirational woman, super strong, super creative, and brilliant. And
Thank
you are full of light, even though you have every reason not to be. And that's what I hope whoever is listening, you guys listening, watching, that you take away from this is, no matter what fucked up shit comes at you in this life, how you choose to perceive that and reflect that back out into the world is entirely in your control.
Yeah.
What happens is not. We can't control that shit. But where we go from there defines us. And it either makes our lives livable, or we create like a hell on earth for ourselves and for people around us, right? And you are one of those people who have chosen the light. And sure, you have dark days. We all do. I do, whatever. But it's not what you're about, and it's not what you give back to the world. You're
Thank
not bitter. And so I don't see, like, we're not here to beg anybody or whatever. Like, it's not trying to tell a sob story. It's trying to tell an inspirational story. And at the same time, hopefully somebody who hears it will be moved to help.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, you know, the last version we tried to do was all like, what's a day in the life of like? And I get that there are people who need to hear that. And, my answer was, whatever version of suck that you think it is, it's 100 times worse than that. Times it by 100, like that's how much it sucks. Like really, if I actually allow myself to get present to it, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very degrading. It's diminishing of a person. If you spend 10 minutes in a dialysis unit, it's traumatizing. But I refuse to live in that, because while my physical body might be experiencing what it's experiencing, I know that what's keeping me alive, and frankly, what's keeping me as fit as I am, which if you just meet me, I've got energy for days. I
She
can't even
does.
imagine myself with a kidney, to be honest with you. I might
Seriously.
glow something up because sparks energy.
I'm looking forward to that day.
Right, me too.
I'm a little scared, but
But the my mental state is what keeps me alive.
yeah.
And I refuse. There's no room for me to be disempowered. There
Right.
just isn't. And, you know, one of my things that I learned from the last time around, people ask me all the time, how did you deal with being on your deathbed? Well, death doesn't need any help from us. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It for sure doesn't need any energy, especially if manifestation, et cetera, is real, then it definitely doesn't need my energy.
Yeah.
Chaos
Totally.
doesn't need my energy. Destruction doesn't need it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen, right? That I have an accountability to myself and to others around me to consistently be empowered. But that also doesn't mean my feelings don't matter. I
Right.
have them. I have emotions. It sucks. There's many days that it sucks. But empowerment for me is the ability to own all of it and be with all of it. On the days that it sucks, I make announcements. Like, you probably don't want to talk to me that day. You
Yeah.
might. You probably don't. You
Right.
know, like, I can't be responsible with what comes out of my mouth that day. So, like, FYI, just to let you know. Even the teams that I've led, et cetera, they laugh because, like, I'm very psychologically open, I guess, where you just know, like, if, you know, you're never going to get like a weird mood from me where you don't know what's going on. I'll let you know, like, I don't feel good today.
Yeah.
Physically, I'm just not loving it. And I can still do things, and I can still live my life,
Yeah.
and I have feelings and emotions. I've learned to be able to carry both of them. Like, I can be empowered, and like today, I physically just don't feel good. I woke up in the middle of the night not feeling great. And, you know, some people would choose to reschedule this. And I'm like, no, like, this is who I am right now, includes all of it.
Right.
And so that's my definition of empowerment is however I am, that's how I am. And that doesn't eliminate my ability to bring light and laugh and, you know, find the humor in whatever's happening, or the ridiculousness, or laugh at how frustrated I get, or some version of that, right? Like, it doesn't eliminate the ability to hold both.
These conversations shaped 2025. They reminded us what's possible when women over 40 choose courage, movement, and self-trust. Season 2 builds from here. Deeper conversations, more embodiment, more truth. Welcome to the next chapter of Fit, Fierce, and Fearless.